small white envelope. It read, "Congratulations, you've been accepted into Harvard University." What is that? God bringing justice. That's God paying her back for the way she was raised. The scripture says, even if your mother and father forsake you, God will adopt you as His very own child. That was God adopting Dawn. For years, it didn't look good. Didn't look like she had much of a future. But like Dawn, if you'll just keep moving forward, being the best that you can be, God will take what's meant for your harm and He will use it to your advantage. God will open doors that no man can shut. God will give you favor and cause people to want to be good to you. And you may be in a situation where, like Dawn, because of the poor choices of others, it seems like you're stuck. You'll never get out of that rut. You'll never accomplish your dreams. No, God knows how to get you to where you're supposed to be. And all through the day, in your mind, in your thoughts, you should be saying, Father, I want to thank you that it's payback time. I know you're a God of justice. You're restoring the years, restoring the dreams. No person's going to keep me from my destiny. I will become everything you created me to be. Have that attitude of faith. I knew a young man growing up that loved to play baseball. That was his passion. When he was 12 years old, he went to try out for the team, but the coach didn't give him a chance. He said, I'm sorry, son, you're way too small to play baseball. You could never make this team. Didn't even let him try out. And that young man was so devastated. He went home feeling like a failure. Well, later in the week, the league announced that since there were so many boys that tried out, they were going to form another team. And he was placed on this secondary team made up of the less talented players. Long story short, those two teams ended up in a playoff for the championship of the league. This young man's team beat the team of the more talented players. On top of that, he was the winning pitcher. He was the one that struck out batters left and right. After the game, he walked by that coach that wouldn't let him try out like he was 10 feet tall. He may have been small, but he knew dynamite comes in small packages. That's vindication. But here's my point. Here's how God works. That next year, the coach came to his home to meet with his parents to see if somehow, some way, he couldn't play on his team that year. The tables had turned. Went from him not even wanting him to try out to him now begging him to play on his team. What is that? That's justice. That's God paying you back. Now you got to shake off the negative comments. What people say about you doesn't determine who you are. Shake off the disrespect. Keep your head held high, and God will promote you in spite of what they said. One way God pays you back is to prepare a table before you in the presence of your enemies. That means God will promote you in front of the people that were trying to hold you down. He'll show you favor and honor in front of those that said, hey, you're too small. You're not good enough, not talented enough, not pretty enough. Now let that go in one ear and out the other. Hebrews 10:30 says, God is a just God. He will repay the exact compensation owed us. He will settle the cases of His people. Some of you have cases that need to be settled. Like this young man. People have tried to push you down, make you feel inferior. Or maybe you poured your heart and soul into that son, that daughter, but now they won't have anything to do with you. You worked hard pursuing your dream, but the bottom fell out. Now you're starting over. You could easily have a chip on your shoulder. Now you've got to know God has promised to settle your case, but you got to get in agreement with God and start expecting payback time. This is what Job did. When he went through his difficulty, where he lost his family, he lost his health, he lost his business, he could have easily been bitter. Said, God, I'm a good person. How could you let this happen to me? This is so unfair. No, right in the midst of the trouble, he didn't see a way out, but instead of complaining, instead of talking about how bad it was, he looked up to the heavens and he said, I know my Redeemer lives. He was saying, I know my God is still on the throne. I know He's a God of justice and He will settle my case. Job ended up coming out with twice what he had before. If you want to see God pay you back, if you want to see God make your wrongs right, then when things come against you, you'll feel like getting bitter. You may feel like complaining. No, you got to dig your heels in and say like Job, I know my Redeemer lives. I know God's going to turn this around. No weapon formed against me is going to prosper. My best days are still out in my future. You got to have this attitude of faith, knowing that God is a God of justice and He will settle your case. I met a young couple that moved here from New Orleans. They were displaced by Hurricane Katrina. They came to Houston so beaten down, so discouraged. It's like all the life had been taken out of them. They had just purchased their first home there in New Orleans. They were so excited. The man had a good job, moving up in the company. Plus, they had a little baby on the way, their first child. They were having fun decorating the baby's room, making plans for his arrival. Life was good. Then Hurricane Katrina hit, wiped out their whole neighborhood. They not only lost their new home, they lost all of their possessions, their furniture, their car, their clothes. The man's company closed down, didn't have a job anymore. When I saw them here at Lakewood, it's like they were numb. Their whole world had fallen apart. I told them what I'm telling you. God is a God of justice. He has seen what you've been through, every tear you've shed. He knows the disappointment, the heartache you feel, and this is not the end, it's a new beginning. You're not going to just come out of this barely surviving. God's going to make the enemy pay and bring you out better off than you were before. I spent 5 or 10 minutes speaking faith, hope, victory into their future. I'll never forget how they began to brighten up. It was like I was giving water to a person that was starving with thirst. They started coming to Lakewood week after week, hearing about how we are victors and never victims, how God always causes us to triumph, how many of the afflictions are the righteous, but the Lord delivers us out of them all. Faith began to rise in their hearts. And they shook off that old defeated, weak mentality. Their attitude was, this may be difficult, it may be unfair, but we know our Redeemer lives. We know God is still on the throne. He's in complete control, and He has promised to settle our case. And that was a few years back. Just recently, they told how they moved into their brand new home that they built here in Houston. The man has a new job, a better job, less travel, better income, better benefits, and they don't have just one child, now they have 2 children. The wife said, Joel, we never dreamed we could be where we are. God has amazed us with His goodness.